Howdy guys. Well, let's go into Autodesk Maya 2025. So when you open up Maya, you're going to most likely enter this page. If you have used Maya before, any recent projects are going to show up in here, but we're going to start fresh with a brand new file. So we're going to go right here and click on New. A lot of times, if you had Maya previously open, this little warning will pop up. If you do want to save, click Save. If you don't want to save, in this case, I don't, so I'm going to hit Don't Save. And now we're here into Maya. There's a lot going on in here. I want to make sure I move some of these pieces so that I can access. I'll be recording this on Zoom. Don't be scared. Maya has a lot to it, but that's because it's trying to be flexible and have lots of different options. I am working on my iMac computer, and so most of these commands are going to be for Apple users. A lot of these are translatable onto Windows with just minor differences, and I'll be sure to share that in the class Discord. So you notice that if you just click and drag, this is a selection option, you are not able to move around. In order to move around, I am holding down the Command key. This lets me rotate from a fixed position right here. And so that's a great way to navigate around in Maya. Option does the same as well. And so let's go into some basics and some housekeeping before we actually make anything, because as we're working in a file, we need to make sure it saves properly, because whatever we do in this file, if we do all this work and it's not saved, then all that progress will be lost. So first thing we're going to do is go up here to hit File, and I'm going to scroll all the way down to Project Window. In here, this is the default. There's a lot of different options in here. As we're only working with the basics in Maya, most of this is not needed. So I'm going to make sure I hit New, because this is going to be a new folder. And now let's get into naming conventions. So this is going to be the overarching project folder that's going to be in here. So I'm going to call this VIST, all lowercase, 106. And then underscore, and then lowercase again. I'm going to call this demo. And then this is general syntax for any kind of project files, especially with Maya, is when you have a new word within that same kind of like grouping, you're going to capitalize it. And then here, so I put demo Maya. We don't like to do spaces. Try to refrain from colons and semicolons. That connection, a lot of times when you're referencing files, the computer does not like those keys, so let's stay away from that. Um, Location, just so my desktop is not going to be as flooded as it already is, let's keep it here in Documents. And so we're not going to need all of these project locations. I'm going to kind of delete a few of them. And by delete, I am just literally kind of like backspacing and deleting a lot of these. So I'm not going to worry about movies in case we need data. Don't need that. I do want to keep an autosave feature. I'll show you how to do that in a little bit. I'd say that's about a good amount to have in here. We're not going to worry about any of these bottom features, and I'm going to hit accept. And so if I pause for a little bit, that is because my cat keeps trying to crawl over. And lady, while I do appreciate your presence, you will be appreciated over in Zoom when I have images. And so next thing we're going to do is set the project. This lets the computer know that we're trying to enact this information from this different project compared to any different project. So we're going to go back here to File, Project, Set Project. So like it's going to default open up to where your projects are. This is why we use this, because I have about 3 to 4 different projects going. And so anytime it's trying to, let's say, find any images or files that are saved in here, we need to tell it which project it is, and it's going to save us a lot of headaches later. So clicking on VIST 106 Demo Maya, and then I hit Set. Perfect. We have all that set up. Let's get into the last bit of housekeeping. So we can always save manually. That is the traditional way to do it. But we're also going to set up autosave, because that way you can't lose a lot of your work because it's auto-saving at whatever time amount that you will be setting. So we're going to go here to Windows, Setting Preferences, and we're going to scroll down to where it says Preferences. And as we say, like Maya is going to have all these different objects in here. We're going to start off here into settings. So a couple of little housekeeping. Everything works in centimeters in here. That is the default in Maya. So if you're doing any lighting, which we'll do later in the semester, or any kind of calculations with physical assets, that is the unit of measurement. But for auto-saving, we're going to go down here to File and Projects. And right here, I was doing a testing in here. I already had autosave enabled. So, but on your end, it's probably going to look like this. We're going to select Enable. And so you can either prompt it before it saves or limit the amount of autosaves, because the more autosaves it's going to do, the more files you have on your computer, the more space it's going to take up. In this case, I'm not too worried about that. Although this is where you're going to probably want to have your own information. So the intervals, the amount of autosaves. I like to have about every 15 minutes, because anything that I do in 15 minutes, I could easily redo, or if I want to have more, in 5 minutes. For y'all's default, it's going to say autosave to the project. I like to say the named folder. In this case, this is why I kept the autosave folder. So I'm going to go up here to show you all of those folders that we saved. And that is why I wanted to have a specific autosave folder. So I'm going to hit here for open. And that is all that I'm going to adjust right now, and hit save. Beautiful. Now let's talk about just general saving in here. So first thing I'm going to do, just to make sure this file is saved, is I'm just going to create a simple polygon, a simple shape. There's a lot of different ways to just make a simple shape. For visual people like myself, if depending on what you have up here, you're already going to see a visual representation of any polygon modeling. So in here, if I just want to have a polygon sphere, I just find that little image and hit select. And it makes a little sphere. Woohoo! You can see it right here in the outliner. Think of this as your file folder structure system. So P spheres for polygon sphere number 1. So now we have a little sphere in our space. Because it was just created, it is highlighted. But if I take my mouse and click over here, that is no longer highlighted. It's no longer selected. But if I want to select this object in order to incur some kind of action, make adjustments, or delete it, I have to make sure I select it. That sphere is pretty far away. How you can always use the scroll function to scroll onto a selected object, or I like to just hit F. F focuses in. It's a great way to navigate your scene. And so holding down Command, that's how I can rotate around the object that I have selected. And so I'm just going to scroll back right here. Now that we have made something, we have created or made a change to our file, let us manually save our file. So you can use Save Scene, but because this is the first time we're saving the file, we're going to do Save As. This lets us save as a different type of file. So when we're using Maya in here, it's going to save it into scenes. A lot of time we call these Maya files scenes because they will often be a scenery, a set of a particular environment. This is a lot of times one little containment of a scene. And so file types right here, we have Maya ASCII and Maya binary. Maya binary is often the default, and here I have ASCII because I've been saving as ASCII for a while. Binary is standing for all the zeros and ones, while ASCII language actually will be using letters and different kind of text prompts. The main differences you have to know about that is Maya binary, because it's saving all that information numerically, the text file is often going to take less storage, while Maya ASCII, because it's actually using a written language, it's going to eat up a lot more space, so it's going to be more space on your computer. That being said, I recommend using a Maya ASCII file because let's say your file gets corrupted or you need to manually change something. Because it's written, in syntax that's similar to English, we can actually go in and edit the file. Hence, that's why we're going to do Maya ASCII. Now, for naming conventions, I'm going to call this Maya Scene demo, but mostly all lowercase anytime I have a new word, uppercase that first word. Now let's do an underscore. Typically, when I have a new file, I like to have a version history or different versions. So I'm going to type in underscore V and then 01 for version 1 of this file, and then hit save as. Woohoo! Beautiful. This file has been saved. So now we have a copy of this in here. So if let's say I go to File and Open Scene, you're going to see that Maya Scene file is right there. So we know it actually exists and we can auto open from that. I'm going to hit Cancel. Let's talk about just some like basic modeling in here. And so right now we've already created the sphere. If you would like to duplicate or make a copy of this sphere, I'm going to hit Command D. It looks like not much has changed, but a copy, or in this case, it's really a duplicate, an exact duplicate of this sphere has been made. You probably saw something changed here, but if you look in the outliner, we have P sphere number 2. Because it's selected, let's move this object around. So as you can tell, we're working in 3D. So we have an X, Y, and Z plane. Hence, you see that down here, Z, X, Y. And so we're going to be moving and creating objects that are three-dimensional. So we're going to talk about these little icons here. For now, we're going to focus on these bottom two. Right now, we just have the selection panel. This will be your translate panel. So a lot of times we call move. This is rotation, and then we have scale. In this case, if you want to visually click on something, you can just hit here to actually translate, or in this case, you can hit the W. Like here for rotate, you can also select these objects, and that is what they will look like. And the gizmo here will represent that particular action. And so if I go back here and select scale, that gizmo changes again. If you're wanting to have the shortcut version, if you on the keyboard, rotate is E, translate is W, and then go back to, if you select R, is scale. They're right next to each other on the keyboard, so it's really easy to toggle through those. Because we have this sphere right on top of it, I'm just going to actually hit this little, or select this little arrow here, and now I'm moving it off that object. And so if I want to create another duplicate, Command D, I'm going to move that one here. And then Command D again. Now we have 4 different spheres going on here. And so that is really nice. And so now we kind of have some objects that we can play around with in our scene. And so this is a great way of how to go about just making a actual physical prototype of what you're going to be doing in your class. We'll talk a lot more about modeling later. I'm going to show you a bunch of the different features that we have in here. So there's a cube function, hence cube. If you want to scale, let's say if you want it to be more of a rectangle, select one of the just one of these points, and that's how you can create and elongate this figure. If you want to scale from all different directions, make sure you select that central point, and that's going to be creating a larger, let's say, cube in different directions. You probably saw some of these numbers were changing here. So we have the channel box editor. This is a numerical way of approaching these. We have the attribute editor, which will also include a lot of these different. So that transform attributes, it's exactly the same stuff that is showing right here. And so couple of tricks that I want to show. You can adjust that width, height, and depth all in here as well numerically. When in doubt, our best friend is Control Z on your Windows, but for here, you can also do Command Z if you're on a Mac. So you're going to be undoing and redoing a lot of different stuff in here. But let's say I want to add some subdivisions. You can add that all in here, or make sure I go back. There is other modifiers to do that in here. We haven't really talked about that yet. We'll talk more about that next week. But if you want to jump ahead, if you want to edit particular polygons, I recommend looking into Mesh, Edit Mesh, and Mesh Tools. Those are all great. We'll cover more of that next week. And so with this, you can already start creating a different piece with all of these objects in here. Let's say I wanted to make a little car of some sort or really strange looking bus. That is one way you can approach this for prototyping. And what's really nice is now that we're in a software piece like this, you can look at it from all the different angles. And so you can just hold down Command, rotate all the way around. If you want to, you have this little gizmo up here that shows everything from particular points of view. So this is the top view. I can look straight at the front, all the way to the bottom. This is another great way. Another way to access the same command is here in panels, right here. And then you have perspective. Perspective is the general view that we are in. But if you want to look at this orthographically, we have the front as well. You can go back here to side view, so on and so on. To get out of this view, as you can see, I already have that locked. You can always undo that manually, but I just will go back here to panels, perspective, and persp. And then now we're back into a unlocked position that I can walk around or move around in our scene. Lastly, a lot of y'all are going to be creating these beautiful reference images. And so you can bring those reference images and drawings in as an image plane. So it's not completely a 3D object. It is part of just having a 2D dimensional shape. Sorry, I got a little distracted because my cat decided to sit on top of a cardboard box that she should not be sitting. But she's very cute right now, so I'm going to allow it. Before you bring in this image plane, it's going to bring it in based off whatever view you're in the scene. But let's say I needed to have something from a very particular view set. That's where those orthographics come in. So right here, make sure I'm going to click front view. And if I want to be like double sure, I just hit front right here. I'm going to go here to the view panel. And then we see here where it says image plane. And I'm going to import an image. So right now, there's no source images in that file. I probably should have put some in there. But because I'm trying to keep everything contained on a video, that is where we're not going to worry about that. But in the future, you're going to want to drag and drop any source images or textures into this location. For now, we're going to scroll down to the desktop because that's where that image is that I want us to use. And I believe I named it cat image. So this is my lovely troublemaker lady. And so we have that selected, and then I'm going to hit open. Giant picture of my cat shows up. But this gives us something to work with. I'm going to make sure we select that picture of my cat. And then we can scale it down. Let's say I wanted to make a cat mobile. And so then you can bring this in as a reference image and then model on top of that. So right now, it is right now 0, 0 in on the screen. That's why you see those spheres closer to us versus that cube shape. If I go back here to the perspective view, you can move this image plane back here, and then we can model on using that as reference. So I'm going to go back here to that front view. Ta-da, now it is back further in that space. But as you can see, it's going to be really hard to view through there. So this is where you can play with different viewing features by selecting this right here, the top of the viewport. This is showing the wireframe, or other ways the topology. So this is a great way for you to kind of see almost like X-ray vision to go through, and then you can use this as a modeling reference. As you see, I accidentally unselected it, and I cannot get back to it because this is in the way. This is where you just go back to the outliner, find the exact object that you're trying to model, and you can move from there. And so this is a great way to go about modeling, especially with reference imagery. And so if I don't want to be in wireframe, I just go back here and I select shaded. And so ta-da! That is about all I want to show today because I want to keep this video short. Just a reminder, whenever you are done, make sure you hit File and Save Scene. That is an excellent way to approach this. But let's say you wanted to save your file or save different versions of the file or have a file you can go back. So in this case, you need to make sure you make some kind of different change. So if I just delete this, now I know I've made a complete change. And I can go back here to File, but then I go to Save As. As you can see, we still have that version here, but let's say I want to create a new version of a file, but still be able to access that old file. I'm just going to go back to that file name, delete the 1, add the 2. This is version number 2. And hit save as. So if I go back here to open scene, to file open scene, now we have two different files you can rotate between. Besides that, that is it for kind of our intro. This should give you enough to work with working into 3D, and we'll talk much, much more about modeling next week. So until then, get cracking at modeling.